The year was 1948. It was the same year that I had seen my first wrestling match and saw Steve Stanley, a person who I really wanted to emulate. That year, my mom and dad rented a cottage out by the lake. And one day, just one day, we had rain, and I was so bored on that day. I started walking around looking for something, and I found a magazine, and I picked it up. The name of the magazine was Physical Culture, but the headline on the cover read, "Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life." That really hit home for me. I read and I reread that article because it was written by the publisher of the magazine, Bernard McFadden, who he himself transformed himself from a poor, sickly orphan boy to become a championship wrestler and ultimately a multi-millionaire magazine publisher. I couldn't have read a better article at that particular time in my life. I know this might sound silly, but finding that Physical Culture magazine at the cottage on that day probably changed my entire life, because in that same magazine was an ad for the Charles Atlas course. The name of the ad was The 99-Pound Weakling, and told the story of this thin fella who took his girlfriend to the beach, and when they were laying down, a bully kicked sand on them. The guy resented this a lot, and he sent for the Charles Atlas course, and he went home and he started working out with dynamic tension and built his body up and came back to that same beach with his girlfriend, found that bully, punched him in the mouth, and the girlfriend says to him, "Oh, I know now that I'm with a real man." But I could relate to that because I was a 99-pound weakling. I guess we all have things in life that we never forget. For me, it was the first time that I stepped through those ropes into a wrestling ring. And it was kind of a darkened arena, and there were some overhead lights on me. And I thought to myself, my goodness, I've done it. My dream, really, in essence, had become a reality. I transformed my body, and I transformed my life. And I got pretty good at wrestling, actually. I started traveling with a lot of the guys that I had watched earlier on television. And I came to meet the first person that ever inspired me, Steve Stanley, Mr. America. Me and Steve started to work out together. We became very good friends. And in fact, when he left Buffalo to go to another territory, if you will, he gave me his weight set. And that was many, many years ago. I'm 83 now, so we're looking at an awful lot of time. And I still work out with that set even today.